In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the engine water pump on this Volkswagen Tiguan. It's going to be located on the side of the engine block. Let's get into it. Using a 7mm socket, take these screws out. On the sides, it's just clipped in right here. You just want to try to pull this out. Pull it off the front. Do the same on the other side. It just pulls out. I'm going to remove these screws. There's a T25 socket. Take that out. On the sides, there's one there, one there, one there. Should be one there. Right there and right there. I'm just going to use a trim tool. You can see where it's clipped in here and on the other side. And just slide it right back. The radiator doesn't have a drain on this vehicle, so we're going to drain the coolant at this pipe right here. Make sure you have a drain bucket underneath. We're going to use, and also make sure the vehicle is cold while you're doing this. Use some hose clamp pliers. Just move the hose clamp down. Just grab the pipe, wiggle it back and forth. And then you're gonna see some coolant drain out. This vehicle, the coolant's already drained, so we don't have any, but just be careful taking this off. Take it off slowly and just let it drain out. I'm going to take this connector off the auxiliary water pump. I'm just going to use a pick, just get underneath the latch right here, pop that off, and using the hose pliers, hose clamp pliers, move the hose clamps. Take those off. I'm going to use a pick. Just get these off with a pick. Makes it easier. And again, there's going to be some coolant, so have a drain bucket. Move that pipe out of the way. And same with this one. Using a 5mm hex socket, I'm going to take this bolt out. We'll just take this out of the way. And pull that off. Disconnect the connector right here. Just push on this tab, release it. I'm just using a pick just to help, or you could just push with your finger. Disconnect that. It's for one of the coolant temp sensors. Now, using a straight blade screwdriver, there's a clip right up here for the hose. We're just going to pop this hose off. Push that clip out. Might have to twist it a little bit. Pull that out. And just grab the hose and just wiggle it out. There we go. Pull that off. We're going to take this pipe off. I'm just going to use a straight blade screwdriver just under here, just to release this. Pop that off. And then same down below, you can use a straight blade screwdriver, pull that out. Now I'm going to use a T25 socket or bit and take this screw out. Take that screw out, and on the other side, the same T25 socket. Take this screw out. Pull that out and just grab this panel. It slides out. disconnect the connector for the mass airflow sensor. I'm going to use a pocket screwdriver, straight blade screwdriver. Just pop that off. Just pull back on that tab slightly. I'm going to pop this clip off. You can use some hose clamp pliers or just some large pliers. Slide that off, out of the way. And this hose will pop off, just like that. Now I'm going to use a 5mm hex socket. Take this screw out. Or at least loosen it up. It is caged, so it's going to come out with the airbox. It's not going to separate. Just grab the airbox and lift up. There's just some grommets holding it in. And pull it out of the way. Now we're going to loosen up the worm clamp on this intake tube. Use a 7mm socket. And just loosen this up. Okay, that's good. You can follow this intake tube down and you can see where there's a bolt that's bracketed right to the engine block. We're going to take that bolt out. Use a T30 socket. Just going to reach down. The bolt is loose and it is a caged bolt, so it's going to stay with the pipe. Now take this screw out. Use the T30 socket. Just using a straight blade screwdriver, pop this clip back. You want this in service mode. That's good. And then just pull this pipe out. There might be some oil that comes out of there if the vehicle is sending a little oil through the intercooler, so just be careful. I'm just going to take a pick just to loosen this up near the throttle body, loosen the pipe up. Just get in there. That's loosened up at least. You can push this down, push it off the throttle body. All right, that's loose. You can take that off. We'll get it off from underneath. And just grab the tube. And there's a connector right here. We want to disconnect that connector. Disconnect this connector here. I'm just going to use a straight blade screwdriver. Push back on the tab. And slide that off. There we go. We're going to take this hose off. I'm just going to use a pick. Just get underneath the clip right here. You can take the clip off completely or just get it into the service position. There we go. Just grab the hose, give it a wiggle. Oh, you're gonna lose a little coolant. You know, let that drain. Now we're gonna take the bolt out for this bracket. I'm gonna use a triple square socket. This is a M9 socket. That in there. Get that loose, and we can take that bolt out. Take that out. We are going to take this bracket off, but if you were just doing the thermostat and you wanted to, you could just push this out of the way slightly so that you can access that bolt. At the top of that bracket, there's a bolt. We're going to take that bolt off. I'm going to use a 13mm socket. And just get on that bolt. And take that bolt out. Once you loosen it up, it's easy to take out by hand. Oh, it's actually a nut. Take that nut off. This bracket comes out. Slide that out. Now using a T30 socket, we're going to take this bolt out. It's for this coolant pipe that goes right in front of the water pump. Take that bolt out. And from up top, I'm going to take this bracket off. I'm just going to use a pick. Just push down here and just slide this out. Pull that off. And then there's a retainer over here. Pop that off the hose. And using the T30 socket, take this bolt out for the pipe. It goes to the bracket attached to the engine. Take that out. This hose is going to be loose. Using a T30 socket, we're going to take this bolt out here. This is on the other side of the engine. There's some plastic pipes that attach to those other pipes that we just were working on. We're going to take these two bolts out. There's one here. There's one underneath next to the throttle body. So that'll be loose there. And you're just going up next to the throttle body. Same T30 socket. Just get this screw out. All right, that's good. This being loose, we're just trying to prevent from cracking these plastic tubes. I'll just grab this tube and we'll pull this out. Just rock it back and forth. There we go. A little bit of coolant coming out. I'm going to disconnect the crank sensor just so I can move it out of the way. Push the tab down, slide that out. Just pushing that down. All right, now I'm going to take this hose off up top. Just using a hose clamp tool. Just going to move that hose clamp down. Some hose clamp pliers. And I'll just pry this out. There we go. We can move this out of the way more. There's a wire that goes underneath this pipe and it connects right here. I'm just going to use a pick and disconnect that connector. There we go. So disconnect that connector. There's the tab. And we can take this hose, just push it out of the way. You have a lot more room. I'm going to take this cover off for the belt. Use a T30 socket. Take this bolt out. And up top, there's another T30 screw. Just use the T30 socket. Take that screw out. This bracket with all the connectors is going to be in the way, so we're going to take that out. Use a T30 socket. Take that bolt out, and take this bolt out. That's loose. You can move that out of the way. You can grab the cover. Slide the cover up. Pull the cover out. We're going to take the two bolts out of the throttle body on the back side because it's easier to get to these while we're underneath. Use a T30 socket. And remove these two. that screw out. Disconnect the connector for the throttle body. I'm just going to use a pick, just get under the clip here, pop that out, slide that off. Now I'll take the screws out from the front, use the T30 socket. Pull that screw out, and then there's one more. Get that one out, and then just grab the throttle body. And I'll pull that off, out of the way. Pull the seal out. Now we're just gonna pop the belt off. Just using a trim tool. It's a good idea to replace the belt while you're doing this job. You pop that off, out of the way. Now over on the left side of the pump, there's a coolant temperature sensor. I'm gonna disconnect that. Just reach in and grab the tab. If you need to, you can use a pick. Disconnect that connector. Now where the coolant temp sensor was, there's a couple of bolts. We'll take those out, use a T30 socket. Get that lined up. Pull that bolt out. There's that bolt. And then there's another one down below there. And pull that bolt out. And the top bolt over on the right side of the pump housing. I'm going to use the same T30 socket. There's that bolt. And this bolt right here. Take that one out. Take that bolt out. And then we're going for the bottom one, but we're going to take that off from underneath. And the bolt right here, use the same T30 socket. There you go. Pull that out. And just grab the pump. And we're going to pull that off. And you kind of pull it out, slide it to the right, because there's this little junction in between here. Pull that off. We're gonna swap the coolant temp sensor over. There's this little retainer right here. You might have to twist it. Just like that, so that you can go on there and just grab it with your fingers. Just push on the tabs. Might need a pick. Just take that retainer off. Sometimes these break. Grab the sensor, push it through. I'm going to take the O-ring off. You're going to replace that. Clean this up. Take the new O-ring, put that on, and put a thin coat of silicone lubricant on the O-ring, just so it doesn't roll. All right, that's good. Slide this in the new pump assembly, and push that down. That's good. And you want to take that clip, just squeeze that, clip that back in, and then rotate it. All right, now using a 12mm wrench where the belt is, we're going to take this pulley off, and you need to put a 24mm socket with a breaker bar on the crankshaft to prevent it from spinning. And this is reverse thread, so it's almost like you're tightening it. And just loosen that bolt. There we go. belt out. Take that out. Hey, pull the belt off. Now take the new belt with a new bolt. You can put the little gear on. Get that lined up. And you're gonna tighten this reverse thread. So it's almost like, it feels like you're loosening it, not tightening it. Get that started. All right, that's as tight as I can do it by hand. Now I'm gonna use the wrench. Make sure you hold the crank, the 24mm socket. You want to tighten this to 7 foot-pounds. Do the best you can. It's going to be hard to get a torque wrench in there. And then once you get 7 foot-pounds, you're going to go an additional 90 degrees. That's why it's important to replace the bolt. 7 foot-pounds and 90 degrees. All right, that's good. Now before we put the pump in, just take a rag and some brake parts cleaner. Just clean off the area where the pump's gonna sit. If there's any gasket material or corrosion, you wanna just scrape that off, but this looks pretty good. Now we'll take this coolant crossover pipe, or a little connecting pipe, slide that into the pump. You can lubricate the O-rings with some silicone. Get this lined up. Get that connecting pipe into the cooler. If it makes it easier, put it in the cooler first. Line this up. You just have the belt go over the pulley slightly. Get that lined up better once it's in place. And there's a couple dowel pins up top. You want those lined up. Good. We'll get the bolts in. You can put a little thread lock adhesive on the bolts. Get those started. Just make sure you don't pinch any wires. And get the other two in. And the top one. And tighten those down. Then we're going to torque those to 79 inch-pounds. And you'll start in the center too. So we'll do the top center. And this bottom center. And then just work your way outward. A little tricky to get to these, do the best you can. Now we're gonna get the belt on, just try to stretch that over. And with the socket on the crank pulley, I'll just twist this. There we go. Just walk it on. There we go. Just keep turning it. All right, that's on. There it goes. That's where you want it. Then you take this little protector off. Take the cover for the belt. And I'm going to go over the belt. Slide that over the belt. Get the bolt started here. And the other bolt started up top. Snug that down. All right, that's snug. That's good. Take the connector for the coolant temperature sensor. Get that lined up. lock that in place. I'll put the throttle body gasket on. There is a little tab you can line up with the slot. Just get that lined up. You want to replace the gasket. Now take the throttle body, make sure the surface area on the back side is cleaned off. And we'll just get this started from underneath. You can try to get it from up top, but it's a little tricky either way. And you want to snug these down. And we're going to torque these bolts to 43 inch-pounds. All right, that's good. Now take this pipe. It's going to slide in there and put the hose. Oops, the hose is going to go over the other pipe. That's lined up. And get the bolt started. If you can reach that other bolt, get that other bolt started before we tighten it down. And put the other bolt in. Just follow the pipe back if you can reach it. It attaches the bracket of the pipe to the engine block. I'll tighten those down. Snug that down. And snug this one down. That's good. I'll take this clamp and move that over. That's good. And this wire is going to go on this bracket for this retainer. Lock that in place. And take this connector, connect the crank sensor. Take this bracket and go under the wires, over the stud, up top. There you go. And get the net started. Take the bolt and get the bolt started. And I'll tighten this down. Just snug that up. That's good. And tighten the nut on the top of that bracket. Just snug that down. Take this hose. We can reattach the clip if you took it out, or just put it back into regular mode. And line this up. Might have to twist it back and forth a little. And try pulling it down if you're not sure if it's clipped in. I'll take the lower hose, lock that in place, get that started. Push that on. Take this connector, connect that to one of the coolant temp sensors, and take the auxiliary water pump, hook the hoses up. Just move the hose clamps. Just move those in position. That's good. Slide it into the bracket and get the bolt started. snug. Take the connector, connect the connector, and take the hose, put the hose together. Move the hose clamp. That's good. Now we're going to connect the connector right here. Just grab that wiring harness. Get that lined up. Lock it down and take the screws for this bracket. Get those started. Just snug. That's good. Snug. And take these screws, get these lined up for this bracket with the hoses underneath. And we'll snug those down. Good. Now connect the connector for the throttle body. Lock that down. Take this hose. And just slide it up. I'm going to go over the throttle body at the top. Just push it on the best you can. Okay, we're going to get that pushed in. I'll slide this in place in the intercooler. Lock that in. And get these bolts started. Make sure they're both lined up. And get this bolt started. If you can reach further up, I'm going to try to get that bolt started. But we can do that up top. I'll just snug this down. Snug that down. Take the connector, line that up, lock it down. Now I'll take this. I'm going to slide the bracket so one's going to come down, this is going to go up, this is down. This is up, this is down, up. Get that slid in place. That's good. Now I'll put the screws in. Get those started. Should be another one right there. On the other side. And one more in the middle. And we'll snug those down. Now I take this shield, get this Just lined up. And just push it on. You can use a rubber mallet if you need to. Push the sides in place. That's good. Now put these screws in and snug them down. And from up top, use the T30 socket, tighten this pipe down. That's good. And now we're going to tighten this down. Snug that down. Give it a wiggle. That's good. Take this air duct, get this lined up, get the screws started. Tighten that down and do the same on the other side. And put the airbox in. Get that lined up. Go around that hose right there. The screw lined up over there, and also the tube, intake tube. Slide that over. That's good. Push that down. Tighten that down. Tighten that down. And I'll use some pliers and just move the clamp. Take the connector, lock it down, and take this tube, get this lined up, lock it in place, and just lock it down. Then you want to start the vehicle, let it run for about a minute, top off if you need to add any more coolant, then we'll put the cap on. Run the vehicle for about 15 minutes, monitoring it, making sure the engine's not overheating. Have the heat on low and make sure you feel heat coming out. Once the engine's up to operating temperature, shut the vehicle off, let it cool down, double check the fluid level, and adjust accordingly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.